Welcome back to the Football Terrace, another episode of Straight Facts. It's Wednesday afternoon, so of course I am joined by Jessica Black. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Not bad. Champions League football without the risk of my club being beaten up is very nice indeed. So yeah, good mood. Looking forward to tonight's game as well. Very intrigued to watch Chelsea and Real Madrid go at it. So yeah, excited about that. And then Premier League's back and it's heated up massively in the last few days.
Yeah, it seems like all the races matter. Top four, title race, relegation. So yeah, this is what we live for, right?
Exactly, and I feel like it's the first time in a long while that there's been a exciting race in all three areas, if that makes sense.
hmm Yeah, I mean, last season didn't feel this close. Top four was kind of like mostly Liverpool just making sure that they secured it. Chelsea got it. I don't think Arsenal and Tottenham were really that close. I think we were like in like sixth or seventh and eighth or something. It wasn't like this. And so there feels like there's a lot on the line, which is good. You want games to matter, especially at the end of the season. This is when things get exciting. So yeah, I am looking forward to the rest of the season, seeing how it plays out.
Yeah, no, it's going to be very exciting. Of course, we're going to speak about Arsenal's defeat later on in the show. Your take on it, the reactions of Arsenal fans, and the big question around what the two main things I'm getting from Gooners and football fans is: will Arsenal come back from this, or will they crumble? Will they bottle it from this point, or not? Of course, there's key injuries as well, so we're going to delve into all of that later in the show. We're also going to talk about Trent Alexander-Arnold. We had Ben on the show last night, a Liverpool fan, who essentially has said this conversation of best right back in the world has got to stop. We now need to be looking at Trent Alexander-Arnold as one of the very best players in the world, point blank. He's got to go in there. He didn't name the players, but he's got to go in there with the Messis. He's got to be spoken about with the Kylian Mbappes, the Haalands, the very best of the best players in the world, the Lewandowskis. He's in that mix. He's essentially Ballon d'Or worthy type thing. So we're going to delve into that a little bit later. Where does Trent rank in terms of the world's very best football players? We're going to have that debate on the show. But I really wanted to start with Anthony Martial. And I wanted to start with Anthony Martial because there's a report today coming out of Spain that states that Martial will be sent back to Manchester United without Sevilla even considering buying him on a permanent deal. That the reporters said, and this kind of comes from fan opinion, pundit opinion, and also kind of what journalists in Spain are hearing from Sevilla, that they feel that it's been a very bad loan, it was a bad signing, and it's gone from bad to worse than bad to worse. And that's very much the complete opposite, of course, to what Anthony Martial wanted. He's gone there to try and reignite his career. He rejected the chance to stay and play under Ralf Ragnick. And there have been many times where I feel like United have needed him in the last couple of months because we've had no one informed, nobody available, nobody fit. But he's gone there and he hasn't done a very good job at all. They're out of the title race. They're out of the Europa League. And that isn't all on him, we know, but it's been a disastrous move. And I want to kind of get your take on it and have a bit of chat around Martial in terms of why do you think it's gone wrong and what next for him?
That's kind of disappointing to hear. I mean, I don't have any stock in Martial's future, but you kind of would hope that somebody that's not getting playing time where they're at and they're not happy, just from like my perspective, I don't have a horse in the race. You would think that they would go somewhere and then kind of rehabilitate their form. And Martial is somebody that I think a lot of us feel like has bags of potential, tons of talent. So you thinking, okay, he'll go somewhere where maybe there's a little bit less stress. He's in a position where he can kind of have a clean slate and maybe he can start to find that form again. But it's not even just that he's not really hit the ground running. It's that they literally just want him to pack his crap and go. Like that doesn't really bode well for the whole Martial was being mistreated narrative, does it? And maybe Martial needed to go somewhere and realize that maybe it's you and not the club that you're at or the circumstances that you were in at Manchester United. Maybe you need to do some work in order to regain your form. It's not just as easy as going somewhere else and then bam, things come together. And so it is a little bit like, damn, it's that bad. It's that bad where they're like, we want this guy gone. But for him not to be able to make any sort of impact um, just speaks volumes of probably where he is at this point. And I don't think he's the only player that's made January moves that a lot of people felt like, okay, well, once they get away from that club, they're going to rehabilitate their career. It hasn't really worked out like that for a lot of people. And so maybe this is something that fan bases need to see, that sometimes it's just the player and you don't see everything that goes on behind closed doors. Maybe they just aren't pulling their weight. If you can't go to Sevilla and go to La Liga and make any sort of impact in a team that's playing relatively well, it might just be Martial and not everybody else. But that's just my take on it. I mean, from your perspective, you're a Manchester United fan, obviously. And so there's Martial FC, Rashford FC. I mean, does this kind of validate some of your arguments around how, sometimes it is the players and it's not the club? And sometimes you just have to back the club a little bit and not just always go with individual players.
Well, yeah. I mean, look, what happens often is we all have an agenda and a point of view. I believe the majority of Man United's issues have stemmed from how the club has behaved and operated, even down to the fact that there was a time where they were picking the interest of Martial over the manager, which I always said back then was a slippery slope. It creates player power, it creates an arrogance, it makes players think they're more powerful than they are, maybe better than they are. And I don't think that's a conducive environment for individuals to learn to develop themselves and to become better in any walk of life. If the head teacher of a school allows the pupils to feel they're more powerful and more in control than teachers, education is going to suffer, because why are you going to listen to people that you're in control of? This is just a natural human reaction to things. But as well, fans and their agendas, we've seen it a lot recently. I mean, eye test merchants have been absolutely not even been put in the mud. They're dead. They're gone. They've been absolutely destroyed. Always picking what looks better over what delivers more. Anthony Martial is a super talent, and there is ability in there, and there is quality in there. But I don't believe he's willing to work. And what you'll find with eye test merchants, ability merchants, and Martial FC is that they hate the word hard work. They will always reject it as that's not important. And they've been doing that since day dot. Teddy Sheringham spoke about Marcus Rashford the other week, when everybody was saying how Marcus Rashford wants to leave because he's not in the team. And Teddy Sheringham, he made a great point, and I'm paraphrasing, but he basically said Rashford's got to be kidding himself if he believes going to a club that he perceives as better, that's winning at the moment, is going to allow him to just break into their first team without him working hard. So prove you can work hard by working hard now to get yourself back into form and back into this Manchester United team. It isn't going to be easy anywhere you go. And I think players like Anthony Martial, players like Marcus Rashford, because of how Man United has been structured, have got to this point whereby they just want an easy life. They want to be able to walk into a team. They don't want competition. They don't want anybody saying no to them. And I think it's that arrogance that they both have has got in their way. And the irony in all of this is you've got Marseille FC and Rashford FC that have been battling for years, and both players have ended up in the mud. And it's also the same situation with Ollie Inners and Ollie Outers, Ollie Sexuals and Ollie Pouters. They're still arguing now over which of the two, which group were right and wrong. You're both wrong. You're both wrong. Right now, in the Rashford and Martial debate, not that I ever got involved in that in terms of who did I prefer overly and who do I think the better player was. I just supported them both because I support Man United. Both are in the mud. Martial FC are in a worse position because they claim that ability overrides everything else. Therefore, if Martial is better with ability, him flopping like Rashford is a bigger failure, because let's say Rashford's a crap player. Let's say Martial's a potentially world-class player. Martial's performing like Rashford. It's a much bigger foul, right? Rashford's at his level. Martial's actually failing. Rashford can't foul if he's crap because you said he's crap. The same with the Ollie in, Ollie out debate. All I'm seeing from these fans consistently is, yeah, but Ollie destroyed us in this area. Oh, yeah, but we should have kept him. No, we shouldn't have kept him. We should have sacked him. But as the Ollie outers were all told, just sacking Ollie and making no other changes internally at the club would do nothing to improve us. It would do nothing. The fact we brought Ralf in and we haven't really listened to him, we just basically told him to put the cone down and try and train the team, we've not improved. And I think all of this is systematic with how we're run. Fans not waking up and smelling the coffee, standing players over supporting their football club has all played a part in where we find ourselves. And am I surprised to see Martial flop? No, because I think he lacks minerals. I think he lacks hard work. I think he lacks the fight. When it comes to the absolute, we're talking the important inches here of elite level sports. He systematically, in my opinion, doesn't have the fight. It's fight or flight. And he has flight when it comes to having to dig deep and push through barriers to go to that next level. And I just don't think he has it in him. And, you know, his fans won't like hearing that because he's ice cold Martial. He's going to do X, Y, and Z. And I wish he was, because either then we'd get a good transfer fee for him and move him on, or he'd come back to Man United and deliver for us. And him scoring and delivering for Man United is all I care about. I can't give a damn about the player debates, you know, who you stand, who you rep. But this is just systematic with the problems at United, and it creates an even bigger issue for us now. And the even bigger issue that we now have on top of this as a football club is a simple fact that we've now got to try and sell him at £250,000 a week. He doesn't want to be at United. United seemingly not overtly happy with him. Who's going to buy him? Who's going to buy him at £250,000 a week? Again, another club issue created. And for me, it's like I'm annoyed that he hasn't worked out for so many reasons. But for me, what you'll find is, and you'll see this, go follow some people at Martial FC, watch them get really angry with Rashford in the next week to try and deflect away from the fact that, one, they're wrong and in the mud, and secondly, they don't really support Man United and they're just here for player agendas. It's hard to see and take, really. It really is.
Yeah, I guess some people that follow players are not really Man United fans. So you kind of have to look at some of the things that they say and just kind of throw it away. You know, I saw some tweets from Martial FC type people, and I was like, oh wow, you're not actually a Man United fan. You're literally just a Martial person. So you're always going to find a way to spin it. But from a Man United perspective, it just has to be kind of like, okay, how do we offload this guy? Like you've already said, I don't think there's, at a certain point, there is no rehabilitating a player. You know, he's been through several managers, and if he hasn't been able to make it work under, I mean, how many managers has he been under now? 4? 3?
LVG, Jose, Ollie. You can't really count Ragnick, but yeah, like if you include the Carrick and Ragnick mix, 3.5 essentially. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot of managers to go through and not have some sort of breakthrough. I know he had like maybe a little bit of like a resurgence in like 2019-20 for like 5 minutes, but he's just not, it's on him now to rehabilitate his career. The issue that Man United have is obviously those wages. It's going to be difficult to offload him. You're probably going to have to just like loan him out again and see what happens, but he's beyond rehabilitation at this point. Like, he has to take it upon himself, and it's probably best for him to take it upon himself to improve his career away from Man United. Because yeah, if he can't go to Sevilla and just be decent enough where they don't have to say literally we want this guy gone. I mean, that's how bad he's been. A lot of times people go on loans, like these players go on loans, and maybe they don't play that well, but like the club doesn't come out and be like, actually, we want this guy gone. I think that speaks volumes about where he is. So yeah, it's unfortunate to see somebody with such amazing talent kind of go down this road. But this is just another example of why it's not just about talent; it's about work rate and mentality. And maybe he just doesn't have it. World class ability does.
Right. Huh? So you're not allowed to use those words. Those words.
Oh.
You're not, honestly, working hard is not what makes footballers successful. Determination does not make footballers successful. Dedication does not make footballers successful. It's all about how good their first touch is, and how their lines look when they're kicking the ball. Basically, ballet with a football is, strictly some dancing with a football is what determines a good football player now. And listen, you're right. And this is it. Like, I loved Martial at Man United, and I wish him all the best in his career. If he comes back and plays for us, I want him to deliver. When he plays well, I'll praise him. But he hasn't hit the heights that we wanted him to. And what really frustrates me with some Man United fans is they just can't take the L. Because when Ollie was sacked, Donny van der Beek and Anthony Martial were going to reach the tops. Watch now. Any competent manager is going to make them play all right. You know what I mean? Any competent manager. Watch. What are you talking about now, you dicks? Like, we all saw this coming. Ollie wasn't bullying them. Ragnick, when he came in, wasn't bullying them. There has to have been something. This is what annoys me about football fans. We always want to believe in a mad conspiracy theory. The manager's bullying them. Oh, he must have nudes on them. Oh, the manager doesn't understand football. That's why I know more than the manager. I know more than the manager. And we're all allowed opinions. I run a fucking channel where we give out opinions. But there comes a time where you've got to sit back and go, why is it 3 managers on the bounce that haven't fancied him? He's gone to another new club in a different country with different fans, with a different media, and the same things being said. Take the goddamn L. Take the goddamn L. He is not good enough. And it's not his ability. And this is what they'll do. But his ability is good enough. He isn't. The ability only gets you so far. Every world-class manager, every top-class player, every top athlete, top sports person that ever has spoken about them in their sport will always put the attitude, the mindset, the work rate, the soft facts on top of that in front of their ability. They're the reasons they made it. And I'm just sick to my back teeth of seeing fans argue about ability like it matters more. When you've got the ability, Martial's more frustrating to me than Rashford, more frustrating to me than Bruno, because technically he is better. But the fact that he's performing as bad as them, that should be more embarrassing. But instead, we want to focus on players like McTominay that we know aren't very good. Weird. I'm sorry to rant, but just gets on my nerves. They can't see it. And I can't wait. They're not retweeting at the minute, Martial FC. I'm waiting. They'll be sitting there in a little group chat, right? How do we kind of spin this on you? It will be blamed. Ollie or Jose ruined him. It'll be that. They killed his career. He can't recover from that. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, you definitely can't recover. As an Arsenal fan, I do understand this 100%. I'm always kind of, regardless of if I love the manager or not, I'm very much so if they're not working hard, and you can tell, you guys, it's not hard when you can see when players just don't really give a crap. It's not that hard to see. It's very obvious there. Then we try to make these little caveats and add context to things that are just very simple. He just wasn't pulling his weight. And I have to say, like, even like with Mesut Ozil, there was so much with that. And obviously there's like other factors involved there with him speaking out on things that people feel like is the reason why he's not at Arsenal. But in the grand scheme, like when you look at what Arteta was saying about Ozil, what everybody in and around the club was saying about Ozil, for him to be at Fenerbahce now and to be suspended at Fenerbahce for the exact same things that he was being suspended for or taken out of the squad for at Arsenal, it doesn't matter what his ability is if he's not going to work hard and he's always going to be at odds with the manager. What are you going to do? And so I'd rather have a player in my team that at least is playing to the best of their ability, even if it's not great ability, than somebody that's literally, like you said, world-class player, not pulling their weight. So yeah, that's the book closed on Martial really at this point, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's exactly, and it is, and they've got to take the L and just admit that, again, this is the thing. I get lots of things wrong. I predicted Chelsea would win the league. I take that. Yep, I was wrong. I got it wrong how good they would be. I thought that they would close the gap further this year. They didn't do it. You just admit when you get things wrong. It's the kind of dying on the hill, which is, as a fan, is just painful to see, because it's almost nothing was completely Ollie's fault. Nothing was completely the player's fault. Nothing is completely even the ownership's fault in terms of individual things that go wrong. They're obviously accountable for it. It's the overarching issues, and it's almost we just have this ability to want to blame one individual person each and every single time, and it's far more complex than that. And Anthony Martial and Donny van der Beek, I'm not angry. The maddest bit is I'm not even angry at them. It isn't their fault that they're not good enough for one reason or another. I'm more frustrated that, again, Ollie wasn't a good enough manager for Man United, and I wanted him sacked in the end. But he's a Man United legend, and he was being called a bully. He was being referred to as racist by some people for his treatment of Martial. How dare they throw accusations like that on a bully? Do you know how big a word that is to call someone? Implied that he was, if he was British, he'd be getting picked. No. Why ain't he getting picked in Spain then? They got an issue with the French in Spain? Maybe. Why don't the French national team pick him then? Because I'm telling you now, if Ollie wasn't picking Kylian Mbappe because he couldn't see his talent, Mbappe would still be getting picked for France. It's just take the goddamn L. He ain't good enough right now. Listen, I'm a big fan of Martial. A big fan of Rashford. Right now on Rashford, with the way he's playing, I have to take the L. He hasn't got to the level that I believe he could have got to. You take it on the chin. You be a man or a woman, depending on your gender, and you just take it instead of trying to twist it all the time, because it's nauseating. It really is. Comment here, says Terry predicted that Man United would win the league. Well, you know that was a joke, my friend. I said we'd come fourth, but I'm still wrong about that, to be fair, because we're not coming fourth either. Terry, I really like you. You always say things how they are. Look at Van der Beek and Martial now, whilst Ralf is giving chances to Rashford because Rashford has accepted his issues and is training hard. Yeah, maybe Rashford is. Look, I'm not very happy with Rashford either, if I'm being honest. But remember, Ralf told us this as well. He spoke to Martial and said, I want you part of my squad. Martial said, no, I want to go elsewhere. And
that was such a weird situation as well. Like, remember when it was like two different sides of the story, but it seemed very obvious that Ralf was like, if you want to be in the team, you're going to have to work hard for your spot, but I want you here. And Martial is like, well, I don't want to have to work for it, so let me go. Like, it felt like something like that. Like, I'm not going to guarantee you a starting spot, but I want you here. You know what I mean? Like, it was very strange. And people thought Ralf was lying. He has no reason to lie. Like, it doesn't make sense.
yeah, exactly. And look, there's much bigger issues at the club, and I wish Martial all the best. And we're seeing now that Ralph's probably going to leave. Have you seen the reports on Ralf today? I mean, this is honestly, it makes me sick to my stomach, and I don't want to rant too much, and we'll move on away from United in a minute. But it looks like he's going to be doing, if he accepts the consultancy role, he will essentially be doing about 6 days work a month. So over the 3-year period, so they're going to basically speak to him 6 times a month and get his opinion on things. Yeah. And I'm like, can you? It's like, hang on a minute. You've got one of the best football directors from European football in the world there's been in many, many years in your grasp, and you are ignoring him. It's like you haven't been consulting him on the managerial appointment, and he's told us that. I don't really care what a lot of the journalists have said. He has said, don't ask me, I'm not the right person. The reason that I believe him, he's been so blunt about other things. If he was involved in the process, he would just say, we're working on it, and we'll announce it when we've decided. He would let you know he's involved in the process. Him saying it's nothing to do with me, I'm not involved, don't ask me. Why is he saying that? He isn't. He's been so blunt about other things, probably too blunt at times. Now, he's come to Man United, and I think he's been disrespected. I think he's been underutilized. I think he has seen players that don't want to work hard. I think he has seen a club with no real vision and no real structure. And I think he's looking at I think he looks at it as, I could do a really good job here if you give me the reins, if you give me some power, if you give me some say-so. And they're just ignoring him. And listen, they're saying they're going to run things differently, with Myrtle and Fletcher making the footballing decisions, the bankers and the financiers staying out of it. Only time's going to tell. But listen, they are the main reason that we're in these situations with the Martials and the Rashfords, because they paid these kids £200,000, £250,000 a week. That's money to win titles. That's money to win Champions League. That's money to be a consistent team. And we haven't delivered. And when we brought Ollie in, the club said part of the rebuild was redoing the wage structure to ensure that we weren't overplaying underperforming players. The fact we're back there again in 3 years is why I said to people, I know why Ollie's got to go. But until we know this club has restructured itself, it doesn't matter who the manager is. And even with Ten Hag looking like he's coming in, if this stuff doesn't change in terms of how we operate and run, if Ten Hag says, listen, I want to get rid of Rashford, he ain't good enough, the ball go, no, he's too important asset to us, we're screwed. We're screwed. We're screwed.
Yeah.
How that still isn't the focus on Twitter every minute of every single day from Man United fans is a joke to me. It's a joke to me.
Yeah, I guess that's one of those things where it's like, okay, yeah, like you already said, Ralph is one of the best footballing directors that's out there. He has a CV, and his CV matters because he's done a lot. And it's just weird that it's like, okay, well, we're not going to really give you the job, or we're going to minimize the work that we wanted you to do based on the fact that you're not a good coach, or the coaching that you've done, we're not impressed with. That doesn't make any sense to me, like at all. And like you said, Ralph has been very blunt and honest in the press. And I think if I was a Man United fan, I would be loving that he's not sugarcoating it. I think at one point he said, Man United needs to change this, 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 and this in the next 2 years. That's how long that this is going to take. And I wouldn't be surprised if they're speaking, him and the board are speaking, and he's talking about this process, whatever it's going to take, cleaning out these overpaid players that aren't really pulling their weight, aren't really performing to the level of their salary, and bringing in younger, hungrier players, how that may not have went over well, because we know what Man United are all about. Flashy, make sure we still look like a big club commercially, but doesn't really matter what's going on behind the scenes. We need to be able to buy players that sell shirts. And I don't think Ralph was really selling that dream. I think he was selling the longer term vision. And they're probably like, we're not into that. And I would be really
Yeah.
disappointed if I was a Man United fan, because Ten Hag has worked under really good systems. Like, he's had good boards and good people around him, good footballing thinking people. And
Yeah.
so if you bring him in, what kind of structure is going to be there for him to be successful? At this point, it was more about Ralph than Ten Hag. And I hope Man United fans understand that.
No, I couldn't agree. I couldn't agree with you more in relation to that. And there's an interesting comment here. Thank you, by the way, to H Cole for the kind words there. Please make sure you're all hitting the like button for us. Really important that you get that done. And this is a very important thing. I remember having this conversation with Gooners a few years ago. Terry, I respect the show, but this Man United situation is getting boring. Exactly. It is getting boring. And when things become boring, you become submissive to them. When you become submissive to them, the bad behaviors continue. This is where Man United fans have to double down and be even more demanding, even more noisy, even more potent. Do not allow the running of the way we run to be. Don't allow that situation off the hook. You've got to keep pushing. You've got to keep pressing. You've got to be noisy. If you become submissive and you become almost numb to it, like, well, there's nothing I can do to change it. It's just
Apathetic.
apathetic. That's an even better word. And you can't allow that. So I hear you. I completely hear you. I really, really do. Terry, all this talk about United all the time, give West Ham their flowers. We always praise West Ham, but we cover the traditional top six on the football terrace.
No,
Terry's
Terry's
transplant.
transplant.
I know you know that. You know what I love about comments by someone like Terry Transplant? He just literally sits there on every stream, like trolling, writing different things. And it's like you're on every stream, so you know what teams we cover on the terrace. That's a very weird comment to make, but nice try, my friend. Nice try.
Yeah.
There was a comment that came through from a member that says, Terry, do you think United can still challenge for the top four? John, no, I don't. I think that's gone. I think that's done. Mathematically, of course, it's there. But based on form, based on how we performed for the majority of the season, I can't see it in any way, shape, or form. Now,
Yes, they can, John.
we'll get onto you in a minute because I'm going to be calling you out in this.
Me?
Yes. So Arsenal football,
Why?
just let it cook.
I've
Slow it
done
down.
nothing.
Just slow it down and let's cook. So Arsenal Football Club, of course, lost on Monday night. I say lost. You got absolutely pammed, to be honest with you. Loss is like narrow. You got beat down by Palace. The reaction's been interesting for me since. And I love to watch fan bases talk about their team. There was a huge level of confidence going into the individual game, huge amount of confidence about making top four, and almost this underbelly of, if we don't make top four now because of where we find ourselves, games in hand, ahead of Tottenham, ahead of Man United, it's seen it should be failure from that point. I kind of wanted to get your take on Monday night anyway, because I know we didn't speak. You were busy working with 110 football, but I also want to understand whether you think from this point moving forward, Arsenal are going to galvanize, come together, come back from this and fight. Or do you believe that maybe they will, to use the phrase, bottle it, crumble, fall away, and just sort of fade away from this top 4 race? So first of all, I want to hear from Monday night, and then I want to get into around whether Arsenal are going to progress forward or not from this point.
Yeah, I mean, Monday was a nightmare. Basically, I was working and I was trying to like check to see what the scores were. And like from the moment the whistle blew, like I couldn't see the game, but I was looking at tweets and it was like, we're getting killed. We're not touching the ball. What's wrong with our touch? Why we haven't touched the ball in 20 minutes? Oh, we're 2-0 down, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, okay, it's the worst game. And literally people were saying it was the worst that we've played this season. And that's saying a lot because we've had some very, very bad performances this season. And so when I rewatched the game, because I watched it after the fact, so I didn't have the same emotion to it that others that had to unfortunately watch it live. I didn't have that same emotion. I was just kind of trying to see what really happened. And I think we have to give Crystal Palace so much credit. Like Vieira, he just really knows how to nullify the better teams from being able to do what they want to do. Like we're not the first team that has seen it hard, home and away, playing against Crystal Palace. So a lot of credit needs to go there. It wasn't just that we were bad, it was that they were really, really good, aggressive, and then playing in a way that doesn't suit us, especially not on our best day. So I want to say that first, because it's not just about us not playing well. That being said, we did not play well at all. It was like everybody came off a plane from halfway across the world. We had jet lag and we just couldn't see straight. And I do think if you're at home in the comfort of the Emirates, you probably get away with those first 20 minutes and then can grow into the game. But Crystal Palace did not let us off the hook. There was some really bad defending there. There was some really off performances there. There were things that came out after the game that just kind of led me to kind of feel like, okay, we can get to that in a moment. I'll just keep talking about what happened in the game. There was just performances I haven't seen from some players before. Gabriel, like, I get that he had a kid and like that's probably the biggest moment of his life. It was the biggest moment of his life, but like you still kind of need to be ready to perform. And if you're not, say it so we don't play you, man. Like Nuno, I mean, the thing about Nuno is I can give him more of like a pass because I don't expect a lot from him. He's a very raw player that probably should not be playing for Arsenal right now. Like he may need more time. But Gabriel, I expect so much better from. Ben White, I expect so much better from. Thomas Partey, expect so much better from. There's just a lot of players. I mean, I could go through the entire team. So we really just played so bad, and the loss was coming. I always have kind of felt like we're going to lose a game at some point and everybody's going to react, like lose a game that people don't expect us to lose and people are going to overreact. But I think it's the manner that we lost. And then the fact that when we lose, we lose. We don't just lose the game. We lose big players to big injuries and suspension. And so one loss can easily become 2-3 losses. We saw what happened when we lost to Man United. We turned right around and showed our asses against Everton. So I think that's where the frustration and some of the anxiety is really coming from. And we all, like, a lot of us were saying this, especially during the January transfer window, where there was almost like this staunch, and very hard, like, backing of the club and their decision not to bolster the squad, and not only just bolster, but like weaken it. Oh, it's fine. The wage bill is going down. These players weren't really doing anything for us, blah, blah, blah. But equally, every Arsenal fan should understand at this point that if you don't have Thomas Partey in your team, you don't have Tierney in your team, you lose a couple of your star players. We don't have the players behind them to play the same way. And Arteta, as good as he's done, like this season, has not really shown the ability to maneuver around losing key players, and that is a flaw of his. So you can't really blame some Arsenal fans for feeling like, damn, this might be top four gone. And that's kind of where I sit. I don't think it's completely closed. I don't think it's an excuse to lose key players and then all of a sudden you just fall all away. But because I've never seen Arteta really maneuver around not having his best players, I feel like we're at a disadvantage now. And yeah, it's disappointing. Like, just lose the game. Do we have to lose Thomas Partey as well? And this kind of goes back to like just managing the squad in general. If he was fatigued before the game, that's what they said. They said he was fatigued from playing for Ghana. Every player reacts differently to being off on international duty, whatever. Could you have not maybe played somebody else, maybe played Sambi and somebody else so that he didn't get injured? If Thomas Partey's not 100%, he's going to get injured. Now he's going to be out for a long time. And
have they said how long that's going to be?
Well, they haven't said it yet, but he won't be back for Brighton. And these muscle injuries he's had before, it's taken him at least 3 weeks. Okay. So I'm going off of like 3 weeks. That's a long time for Arsenal right now. Beyond Southampton, we have 3 really difficult games in a row. So this is just a long-winded response, but like when you look back at recruitment for Arsenal and the report card on whether or not we did good in terms of our recruitment was always going to be based on where we finished at the end of the season, not based on how we felt when we were doing well. And I look back on, okay, we brought in Sambi and Nuno. Those are 2 players that were supposed to come in to cover Tierney and Thomas Partey, the 2 players that went down last season, and our season crumbled from there. If Arteta is not comfortable enough using those 2 players, the recruitment was not that good, was it? That's the reason why they're here. Well, I see Arsenal. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Yeah, no, and I want to just come in and interject for a minute because I understand where you're coming from. And for me, I didn't know the angle you were going to go down because we don't realize we obviously plan what we're going to talk about, but I don't know what your responses or your answers are going to be. I think what I like about what you're saying is, or respect about what you're saying, is very much that you don't think you may do it now because of these injuries, but it's because the squad outside of them isn't good enough, because Arteta's ability to integrate lesser players but still get your team to perform, which is what the better managers can do, it isn't there. Equally, the recruitment, as good as some signings have been, Ben White, I think, has been excellent. Tomiyasu, when fit, has been excellent. Lokonga and of course Tavares are maybe just a little bit too
they're too far away,
too fresh, too wet behind the ears to be able to come in. And what's refreshing about what you're saying is that you're essentially saying, and you're not using these words, but it's without all of our best players being fit and available, we're just not good enough right now to make it. And I think that's a fair way to look at it. I think what's frustrated me is kind of Arsenal fans trying to play it down like, using it as an excuse. Oh, this isn't it. This isn't it. We've got the injuries, so we can't do it now. Actually, if we come 5th or 6th, that's still a great achievement. We shouldn't feel disappointed about falling away. And I kind of look at it from the angle of, or blaming things like Chelsea's loan system or referees again is crazy. It's something else's fault. And I'm like, you can still criticize the team for not being quite good enough, or not even criticize, but state that you're not quite good enough. You can still go, we're not quite there yet. That's very different from almost, if it weren't for this, we'd have made it. But that's the same as saying you're not good enough. Just be brazen about it. There seems to be this one, and I get everybody wants to protect their club. I get everybody wants to stand by their club. But there just comes a time where you've got to be able to sit back and say, we're just quite not ready for this yet. And I think where some Arsenal fans maybe feel a little bit embarrassed is up until that defeat. Actually, not even a lie. Up until Spurs beat Newcastle, it was, we are going to do it. This is done. This is over. This is over the line. And you and I have had this conversation many times of slow down a little bit. Slow down a little bit. There's a lot of games to go. By the way, I still make you favorites because I still think you can do this, because I still don't have 100% faith that Spurs aren't going to have a wobble themselves. And Man United can't do it. Man United can't do it. And Spurs will still lose at least 2. of their remaining games, at least 2, and they can draw some. So I
Mm.
look at Arsenal and just think to myself, it is doable still for you. I don't feel like it's this. I kind of don't feel as though it should be this big write-off for you all straight away. I think too many Gooners are throwing baby out with the bathwater. No, that's it. It's all done. But I think, and the reason I'm not going to accuse you of this, and I was, because I thought you were going to go along them lines. I think some people are just
Mm.
trying to remove the pressure. I think some fans are just trying to remove
Oh no.
are trying to remove the pressure, and I don't want to get cooked. So I'm just going to say I want to be the underdog again rather than being the favorite for it. Where a lot of Gooners have fought all year to be considered favorites for the top 4 position, and now they've got it. They're like, oh,
Yeah.
actually, shit, fuck. That
We're
means we're
not
getting criticized.
the thing is like I'm not saying that like if we don't make top 4, I'm going to be disappointed because I think it'll be based on if I had to go like have a crystal ball to the end of the season and we don't make top 4, then my assumption or like what the reason for me would not be because we got injuries. It would be because we weren't prepared with a plan B. We stripped down the team to a place where there was no plan B. And our recruitment also made it difficult to backfill really important positions that if you don't have those players in your team, you cannot perform. Kieran Tierney was a huge reason why in the Europa League we failed. Once he went down, that was it. So that was one of the most important positions to fill. And now I'm looking at Nuno, and I don't hate him and I don't want to kill him, but he's just not there to fill in for Kieran Tierney at that level. That's recruitment. Those are decisions that the club made. So you're going to get injuries. It's a reason why maybe your team doesn't perform as well. But Arsenal should be able to recognize a problem and solve it. And if they don't, we should criticize them. And that's the reason why we don't make top 4, not just because of these things in the ether. Now, do I think we're out of it? No, because we can beat Brighton and put the pressure back on Spurs. And then here we go. But losing to Crystal Palace in the manner that we did, it could end up being something that puts a lot of pressure on the young team and they just can't come back from it. I think it could go either way. But I don't think it's really an excuse right now to like just say, okay, well, it's okay for us to finish 5th or 6th. We still have to fight for top 4. There's still games that with the team that we have right now, we should be able to win. But this also goes back to the evaluation on Mikel Arteta, because this is where he earns that Manager of the Month title. It was fun for him to get it in March when things were easy and we were playing well, but he needs to persevere through this part. They made a decision to get rid of Callum Chambers, Ainsley Maitland-Niles, 2 players that could very well play fullback for us right now.
And this is where,
Like, this is the decisions that they made.
This is the thing where football fans have got to learn that you can criticize Arteta without being a league gunner. And I use him as an example because people like to not be associated. Arteta gets praise for moving Aubameyang on and making the situation in the dressing room better. If he allows 2 or 3 additional players to leave and then injuries ensue and you miss out on top 4, that decision has to be criticized. But you can criticize Arteta's decision-making without saying he has to be sacked. That's what frustrates me with football fans now. They can't have honest conversations. And I understand it's difficult because there's lots of trolls online who are binary beyond belief. It's all either you're in or you're out. It's either you can criticize or you can't criticize. It's nauseating to kind of see it, and then silly excuses coming out or write-offs and then trying to spin it into actually this is still an amazing situation. Arsenal are still in this race and they need to push forward. And of course you can come back. Brighton could not score in a brothel. You're better than Southampton. Like you should be to not expect, even with your injuries, to not expect 6 points from your next 2 games. You are not repping Arsenal correctly. You've won 17 matches this year. Your improvement has been impeccable. You've been the better team in the vast majority of games that you have played in. Does it mean you definitely win the next 2 games? No. But to not expect it from your team and to suddenly throw out that seed of doubt to your players and go, okay, guys, you're allowed, we're probably going to finish in the top 6, which nobody expected. Therefore, it's okay to lose. That's what you're saying. It isn't okay to lose. That's where I do agree with Lee Gunner. You've got to keep the standards high. And by the way, it's not just Arsenal. I've seen every club do it in the last 3 seasons. It all started with City losing 1 centre-back being the reason they couldn't win the league. Liverpool did have major injuries last year, but it was like, oh, that's it. That's a good enough reason for us to lose 6 games at home. Chelsea fans this year are all the other problems are not even part of the issue. Losing the fullbacks, that's the reason that we fell off. I just find it's far too convenient and easy to give these teams and these clubs whose squads are worth anywhere between 700 million to 1 point something billion pounds an excuse. It's mental to me.
Yeah.
It's too far. It's too far. I get there's repping, but it's too far for me in relation to that. In terms of doing it though, like, do you feel you'll bounce? Like, if you were to crumble from this point, finish fifth, finish sixth, really not really come together, how disappointed would you be in Arteta and the group?
Well, first of all, I don't know if I really consider finishing fifth or sixth crumbling. Is that the
So
word
you,
we're using?
well, I'm using the word crumbling. So most of your fans this time last week said you were favourites for top four. You ended up not
Uh,
getting it and finishing 5 points, but 5-6 points
okay,
behind.
so we're talking about we fell away.
Yeah, if you
We
proper
fell
fall
away.
away, would you look at that as crumbling, or do you think that's just leveling out to where you really were? Were you slightly performing above yourselves? Like, what would you put it down to?
I think it could be a little bit of both because we also have really difficult games coming up as well. Like when you look at if we had Spurs, like look if you look at Spurs schedule, if we had that schedule and we fell away, yeah. But we still have to play Man United at home. That's going to be a difficult game regardless of your form. Spurs away, Chelsea away. That's not out of the realm of possibility that we lose all three of them games. And that doesn't necessarily mean that we played like shit either. So I think it just depends on how things play out. We know that sometimes when you look at results, you can think, oh, they just capitulated when really it was fine margins. So I think it could be a little bit of both, but it depends on how many points we are away. If we turn around and lose to Brighton, feels like too familiar of like a crumble, really. We should be beating Brighton at home. We should bounce back. So I think it'd be a little bit of both. We also have to keep in consideration that I know people get tired of hearing it, but this was also a reason why I felt like we needed to be a little bit more even when it came to, or a little bit more balanced when we're talking about top four, is this is a really young team under a lot of pressure within a manager that doesn't have a lot of experience. And Conte does have experience getting his players over the line in these positions. They have more experienced players up top in the positions that matter. There are things kind of going against us, so don't be surprised if we just can't come back. It's not really something that I feel like we could overlook and just say like, "Oh, it's cool," but don't be
Well, the
surprised.
thing is, Jay, but you're one of the only Arsenal fans who I won't come for. On a fan banter level, I'm talking about, because you've already said, like, you got, and the reason I say that is you're part of the terrace, so I'll protect you. You got cooked by Gooners all season for saying, like, top six is still progression. Top six, we're a top six team, I believe. Top four would be a great achievement, but we'd be kind of slightly ahead of the curve. You never called it a fake or false position, but said that would be too much. It's all the Gooners that came for you, that came for Adam, that came for. So I think the other Arsenal fan on the terrace who said that, I want to say that it might have been Kesh, kind of came for them as, you're too negative, you're too down in the dumps, you're this, you're that, you're the other, Leanne Gunner and all this sort of stuff. It bothered me because I'm like, they're just being realistic. They're not getting too ahead of themselves. They understand that it's a steady process to get to where they need to be. And now suddenly that, like, it looks as though it might not happen and you might be right. They're scurrying away like rats, and it frustrates the living daylights out of me. Arsenal have been better than Man United this year. Arteta has proven a lot of people wrong. He's improved your club. You're playing better
Yeah.
football. You look the better team. But I've said to you on many occasions, a lot of Gooners have been acting like you'd reached the summit. You're at the top. There was talk of, if this is what was being said 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, if we signed Gnabry
Mhm.
and João Felix, we'd challenge on all fronts. And you'll say, oh, that was a gal that tweeted it. But look at the retweets, look at the likes, look at the comments going, yeah, I agree with you. It isn't the person tweeting it. It's the interactions and the support that it gets. There was talk of Bukayo Saka being a young Lionel Messi. When you look at all the positive tweets and the support that it gets, it was like, hang on, slow down a little bit. Like, this is where I get confused. I look at those people and Lee Gunner as the same type of person, but on opposite ends of the spectrum. It's just like, you shouldn't not celebrate the progression. But equally, you're not Man City. Slow down yet. Slow down a little bit and just understand that it takes time. And a run of good form for 2 or 3 months does not indicate that I heard some of your fans Oh, I think actually the Cronkies are brilliant owners, actually. Look what they've done. What? Honestly, it's insanity to me. So I'm glad there's still a lot of level-headed gooners like you, Kesh, Adam, and I'm probably forgetting names of level-headed gooners out there, of course, that like kind of know that. Like regulars on the terrace with Colleen that's joined recently as well. But yeah, why are fans just as hang on? Your fans are just as bad, Terry. If you were watching the show from the start, you'd have seen me already going on that, my bro. I'm not saying Arsenal fans are isolated in that. I literally called United fans out for the same thing earlier, my bro. So watch the playback, brother, and you will see that. We have some super chats here. First one says, some big leaguers, United, Spurs, Arsenal haven't performed in a way that they spend money. Why is that? They have any different from how are they any different from Liverpool and City? How the club's run, mentality of the club, quality of coach, and signing the right type of players for your team. Like Tavares and Lokonga are a great example for Arsenal, as Jess has mentioned. They've come in, they're meant to be the backups. If the backups aren't good enough, they're bad signings. They might turn out to be good enough in the future, but you still need them right now. And it's about getting that balance right, is what I would say. Chike here says, you know what's embarrassing? Terry, you said that American that thinks Arsenal should have lost 3-2. I asked because you know what defending means. This is why I can call him Benjamin Shite. Look at the first goal, Terry. I don't get the first bit. Am I reading that right? Terry, you who is that American that thinks Arsenal should have lost 3-2. I don't know what that bit means, my guy. I'm really confused. Look, Benjamin White, do you find he was at fault for the goals?
I mean, he made the foul for the first goal, but Nuno ducked and didn't defend. So, but anytime that we don't play well or a goal is given up, I notice rivals tend to blame it on Ben because they want him to be bad. He's not. He's not a bad player. He's actually been one of our better players, and he's a big reason why we are where we are. So, but when you're a player that a lot of rival fans didn't feel like you deserved, you spent 50 million on him, you kind of are going to blame him for every single thing that goes wrong with Arsenal. I mean, our not scoring goals is Ben White's fault. That's just how it goes.
Yeah, I think Ben White's been your Ramsdale has probably been your best signing because he's pulled off some spectacular saves, but Ben White's just been so consistent. You look at that first game against Brentford, and it was almost a case of, oh my God, what have you signed? And he's been brilliant since. And of course, he's had moments where he's been cooked or where he's made mistakes. I think we've created this kind of notion in football that defenders don't get taken on, defenders don't get nutmegged, defenders don't make mistakes. All the world's best defenders that we look back on with nostalgic eyes made mistakes and got cooked at times and had things go wrong. Ben White's been very good for the £50 million so far. And remember, it's not £50 million to play for you for 1 year. It's £50 million for the next 10 years. And so far, he's been good value for money. And as he and either Saliba or Gabriel get older, as your team develops, he'll probably keep getting better.
Confirmation bias is key as well. So when he was playing well, people were quiet. The moment that we didn't have a good defensive day, all the people that had decided that we had made bad signings. I mean, there's still people trying to convince me that Ramsdale is shit because in the summer they went big on it. Arsenal fans and non-Arsenal fans as well. So that's just kind of how it goes. And
yeah,
when rival fans are talking about one of your players a lot and they're not even bad, it's because they're good.
Well, you see it in reverse. I've seen a lot of United fans on socials in the last month really twerking for like Odegaard being better than Bruno, and it's I see what they're doing. It's a great way of generating interactions with Arsenal fans to go, oh my God, because it's very easy as a YouTuber to get other fan bases to sort of fall in love with you by saying very outrageous things that prop up their club and put yours down. So not saying sitting there and going, I think Odegaard is amazing. They go, oh, thank you, cheers, rival. To say, if you're a Chelsea fan, you say Odegaard is amazing, but Mount is dog poo. Arsenal fans will love you because you're slagging off a rival at the same time. It's a very simple formula. If you want to grow your Twitter account with rivals following you, slag your own players off and prop theirs up at the same time. Vice versa, if you're one of these toxic positive fans, just slag off rivals by elevating yours at the right times when they're doing things. It's a very simple formula, and it's one that I quite enjoy watching from afar. I'm like, I see what you're doing there. But yeah, with Odegaard, it's almost like there's a lot of Arsenal fans thought he was trash. During that like 2 or 3 month period where he was killing it, they were very quiet. He has one bad game, and it's like, see, I told you, should have gone and got this. Equally, though, you get like gals of this world that are like, oh, I'm so glad we didn't get James Maddison. I'm like, slow down. It's been 3 months. If Maddison goes to a big club in the summer and starts killing it, the narrative will change again. Like if you'd have signed James Maddison, I'm pretty sure he'd be delivering well in your team as well. Like it isn't as simple as that. Where are you getting this idea that Ben Shite is having a great season? Jesus Christ, he almost let Timo Pukki for Newcastle score on him. Jesus Christ.
Almost let somebody score on him?
Against him. It should be against him, by the way. But
against him.
Yeah, and I'm reading this, the tweet says that.
But you know what? Like, you're entitled to your opinion. If you think he's terrible, then that's fine. Like, you're entitled to that. I won't lose sleep over it, to be honest. I love Ben White. I think he's awesome.
It's so annoying that rivals are more butthurt than Arsenal fans. Take a breather, haters. We are good. My club is on the rise. Accept it and move on. But I also like that take. And that's why I expected more of that from Arsenal fans Monday around. Disappointed to lose, but we're still improving. We're still in a good space. Let's relax. I've just kind of seen the opposite from so many, like writing it off, blaming weird things, or just like, I told you we were crap. It's almost like it's one defeat.
But I feel like the nerves have just really set in and I hate to say this, like Arsenal fans, we need to be honest. Like we haven't really been fighting for anything in the league for a long time. We've just been off it, And so when you face so much like criticism and you haven't been good for a while, and now you're in a position where you could possibly get back into Champions League, you want to protect yourself. So that's kind of where I think it's coming from. I think most Arsenal fans could wake up a couple days after that, Crystal Palace defeat and say, we're still in it. We're fine. And honest for me, like we finish in the top 6 and we're still a couple points beyond top 4. We just miss out on it. I'm not going to turn around and say Arteta out, because we have progressed. We're just not, we may not be as good as some people are saying that we are. And that's not out of the realm of possibility, because guess what? Like we literally just started looking decent this season in December. It hasn't been a long time since we've looked good. Remember, at the beginning of the season, we weren't great. So I think there needs to be that balance, but it's so hard to find. Yeah. But I think Arsenal fans are just trying to protect themselves right now because they really want Champions League. We really want it, and we have an opportunity, and we don't know when it will come back. So
Totally agree. Viewers, make sure like buttons are being smashed. Make sure you subscribe to the Football Terrace. Remember, we're live after the Chelsea Real Madrid game tonight. Also got the 12th man coming up for you later this week. Hot Takes is back with me and Lies. So keep your eyes peeled for all that content. Now, I want to talk Trent Alexander-Arnold. And I want to talk Trent Alexander. One, I've had a few lies told about me on this. It's kind of weird, again, how
cue the video.
Well, I'm not playing a video, actually. I haven't even bothered to go find it. But Trent Alexander-Arnold, we all know that he is a world-class right back. We all know that some will say he's the best right back in the world. Some say one of the best. Mm-hmm. Some will claim the greatest ever right back in Premier League history. Some will say on his way to being, whatever it may be. There's all this talk of he's revolutionized the position of right back. Last night, though, we had Ben on the show, a big Liverpool fan, friend of the terrace, who said that, essentially saying, I'm paraphrasing again, they stop the world-class or best right-back conversation. He is one of the best football players in the world, like one of the very best. And we should be talking, putting him into that kind of category where we see the Lewandowskis, where we see the Benzemas, where we see the Messis, where we see him. He should just be in that conversation. And I kind of wanted to get your take on that in relation to how good just an overall football player is he, and where do you rank him, really?
Oh, this kind of conversation does give me a little bit of like, okay, let me make sure I say this in the right way. Let me make sure I'm like tiptoeing toward it. So I think he's beyond the young player conversation for sure. Like he's beyond that. Like even having young player conversations at this point don't really feel the same because we know Trent is the best young player in the world. Like because he's been that for like the last 3 years, right? So he's beyond that part. Sorry, my dog's barking for some reason. So I feel like maybe people want to progress him away from the right back conversation because they want to elevate him further. And I understand that. But this the security of the right back conversation means that we're talking about him in regards to other right backs, other full backs that definitely don't have what he has going forward. And he's playing in a team that doesn't require him. Like, I don't even think about his defending because the only time that I would feel like his defending would come into question is if Liverpool actually expected him to be a really good right back defensively, which they don't. They don't need him to be better at defense for them to win anything. So I think leaving him in the right back category gives Liverpool fans a really good chance to elevate him in a way where he can go straight to the top and just end the conversation. If you start wanting to put him in the best players in the world, and we're not really talking about defending anymore because we know that his defense is not the best. We're talking about goals and assists, playmaking, creating goals and assists, like adding to goal contributions. And I think that makes it a more difficult conversation to say that he is the best. I think when you leave him in the context of right back, you can say he's the best right back in the world without people looking at you crazy. But if you look at some of the best players in the world with goal contributions, because that's why we're talking about Trent, right? Is what he can add in the final third. I don't think he's that much better than every single midfielder that we can look at. I wouldn't say that he's better than Kevin De Bruyne. I wouldn't, you know what I mean? Like, you look at somebody like the numbers that Vinicius are putting up, even in La Liga, weaker league, way more goal contributions. So I think it becomes a little bit more when you take away the confinement of right back and you open it up to every other position and you start talking about goal contributions, he actually goes a little bit further down the list. If I was a Liverpool fan, I wouldn't want to get rid of those confinements yet. Because when you start talking about the best player in the world, you can't say, but he's a right back. You can't say that anymore. That's my take on it.
And listen, I think a lot of what you said there makes sense. And there's a few things in this. So I've had touched on these conversations many times. One of my long-standing thoughts in football was always, and it was kind of playing devil's advocate around, well, at their best, was Maldini as good a defender as Lionel Messi is an attacker? As a question, if you take the greatest, so a lot of people vote Maldini as the greatest ever defender, and in the comments, a lot of people might have a different player, but let's just, argument's sake, say it's Maldini. Is he a good defender as Messi is an attacker? And I think in that logic, some people go, yeah, he is. So therefore, who's the best? And then you speak to footballers, you speak to managers, and it's almost, yeah, but the better you are at football, generally speaking, the further up the field you play. The very best footballers are the more technical ones, the finishers, the creators. And ironically, this is where like technical stuff becomes interesting because they say the hardest thing to do in football is score goals. Therefore, if you're a great goal scorer, does that make you the best footballer? And there are lots of nuances to that argument. Then you get people's preferences. Some people don't care about the goals and the assists; they just care about how it looks, and it becomes hard. So it's always been an interesting kind of just a debate point for me. What makes you the best player in the world? Is it technical ability? Is it outputs? Combination of the two? It's doing it further up the pitch harder than doing it from a deeper position. Great debates to have. Trent Alexander-Arnold for me these words are thrown around too easily now, but he's generational. He's an absolute phenom. To come in at such a young age as a right back and to do what he's doing is out of this world. I don't judge him as a right back anymore. And I quite like Ben brought this up. And me and Dom Hussein had this conversation a while ago where as you say, he creates a lot for a fullback. And I'm like, yeah. But when he gets criticized for not being world-class defensively, the argument is always, but that isn't his role in the team. So if his role in the team is to be offensive, then we can't over-egg the level of assist for him being a right back. You've got to assess him as a playmaker. So if you're assessing him as a playmaker, is he one of the very best football players in the world? And I think that for me is a fair conversation, because I do think there's an element, a percentage of Liverpool fans that want to keep him in the right back role because he's clear in that in most people's eyes. He's clear. But if you move him out of right back and you put him into the playmaker category, which I think he should be in, there are others that come into that. There are other creators. KDB, you've obviously got Messi that's not having a great season, but looks at as one of the greatest playmakers of his generation. You know, you've got players like that as an example that suddenly come into the equation. However, I think Trent is there or thereabouts. I really do. And I know he's a right back and that's the role that he plays, but I think he's technically proficient enough to move further forward in a team. I think that he's right foot is a wand. He can cross and move and pass with his left foot. And I said something last night. People were talking about Marcelo and Dani Alves, and they were two of the best fullbacks we've seen in Europe in the past 30 years. They're two of the best ever. Trent, and when I get terminology right, when I say technically, I'm talking about your touch and your passing ability, your passing range, not your skills and technique on skills, or techers as people call them. His passing ability and his crossing ability on both feet, for me, is superior to those two players. The accuracy of his crossing, the whip on his crosses, the ability to come on the inside and the outside. He is a sensational football player. Will he ever go into the top 10 players in the world, though, being a right back, being labeled as a right back? I don't think so. I think if Liverpool fans want to push him into that conversation, and a lot of this stuff is fan-led. Let's not get it twisted. A lot of the conversations, even at like Ballon d'Or level about players, is like one of the reasons that J5 was so hyped this year was because Chelsea fans pushed that narrative. The media pick up on it because they know fans care about it. It gets across the desk of the Ballon d'Or people. Oh, let's include it because it's generating. We know it's a popularity contest. So if you want to push Trent into that space, you've got to start assessing him not as a right back who's getting an obscene amount of assists and chances created. He is a playmaker producing a high level of chances and everything else. You need to compare him against other playmakers now and not against other right backs. Otherwise, I don't think he'll ever move into that category outside of the sphere of Liverpool. But for me, he deserves to be, because I just think he's too good to be a right back. And I know England tried to play him in midfield and Klopp wasn't happy with it. Maybe that's because Klopp wants to be the guy to eventually move him there, and it's his idea. And if Southgate does it first, it's like, how dare you? How dare you make that move? I would love to see him in that. I mean, I think if we move back football 20 years and we're playing 4-4-2, I think he'd be playing right wing. I don't think he'd be a right back. It's only because now the right winger stroke inside forward is needed now more to cut inside and be more of a goal scoring threat as well. That's why I think this system works for him. I think in the old school way, he'd be put in an England team, for instance, he'd play David Beckham's role in that right hand wing. That's where he would go because his crossing ability is out of this world. And he gets a lot of crap labeled at him, like crossing Inshallah Merchant and all this nonsense. But yeah, he's just out of this world. And I honestly look at him and I think he's brilliant, one of the best playmakers in the world. And I don't think it's a mad shout to talk about him as one of the very best players out there. He's sensational.
Yeah, I think that, like, obviously, like, when you look at a list of the best playmakers, I do think that it opens it up for other players to be in and around him where it's not like that with the right backs, but equally still would be high up that list. So I'm not saying that I wouldn't say the best, but I would say one of, and probably top 5 playmakers in the world. Right up there, not better than, but right up there, kind of in and around the Kevin De Bruyne, David Silva in his peak, that type of like list. Because he's just that good. And it's not, I can hear myself. It's not just the crossing, it's the timing of the cross, the spin on the cross, the vision. His passes in between the lines are excellent. He could probably play midfield. He's been consistent for 3-4 years now. He's playing in one of the best teams in the world. So you can say that he's playing at the top level as well. And so I would just say that, like, as long as Liverpool fans are okay with him being in the playmaker category now and having more competition, then it's okay to take him out of that and start putting him up against those types of players. He'd probably do just fine in that list.
Yeah, there's a comment here that says if Trent played for City, would we be saying the same thing? Well, a lot of people look at KDB as one of the greatest players in the world, great Cancelo. So, of course, Trent would be loved and respected in the same way. I think what's interesting, one stat I love about Trent Alexander-Arnold on average loses the ball around 24 times per game, on average 6 more times per game than Bruno Fernandes does, and I think 7 more times than KDB. But all of the highly creative players in the league, Rafinha is a player that everyone looks at as techie. Rafinha loses the ball about 20 times per game. All highly creative football players lose the ball between 17 to 20. Trent is quite high at 24 times, but they're all in that ballpark. All the guys that used to be assisting and creating chances at sort of 2.5 to 3.5 times per game, as in chances created, that all the guys, generally speaking, with big chance created stats, and not the strikers who are laying a ball off the side of the tap it in. I'm talking the guys that are playing from deeper and they're creating. All their loss of possession stats are pretty much the same, which is why I don't like when that stat's labeled. I remember a few games where Trent was like slagged off for how many times he lost the ball. I'm like, but he loses the ball in that amount of times every game. The difference between today and those other matches has been he just hasn't had a cross today land on someone's head and go in. It doesn't mean he's performed badly. Do you get what I mean? Like he always, even in his best games where you're like, wow, look how good Trent was today. Check. Oh, look, he lost the ball 22 times. But when he's scoring and he's assisting and whatever else, no one's noticing all those things. And that's the thing with football. We overanalyze now. And when there's a player you dislike, people go searching for that confirmation bias. And it's like, I'm going to find the things that he's done wrong in games. And I did it last night with KDB and I was playing on the watch along. I put how many times he lost the ball. Every time he lost the ball, I was like, lost it. And in the end, he scored the winner. But my point was, there's a certain player that plays football in the Prem. If he loses the ball that much in a game and then scores the winner, he's attacked. What did KDB get labeled as being? Clutch. And we have this way of, and Trent, by the way, outside of Liverpool, suffers with that from rivals. He can score, he can assist, he can create, he can be brilliant. He gets taken on by a defender that doesn't even lead to a goal. And it's like, see, told you, crap. It's almost like it's getting boring now listening to it. It's so boring.
Yeah, no, Trent's, I don't even think like excellent, great. None of those words really describe him anymore. Like he's definitely just up there as one of the best players in the world. And so it's okay to talk about him in that light. And if you even just look at like, and I know maybe Liverpool fans won't love this, but I'm trying to give him a compliment when I say this, that you have 3 of the best forwards in the world in your team in Salah. Jota has been amazing this season. Mane. Sometimes when you watch them play outside of Liverpool, like obviously they don't play in as good of teams as Liverpool. They suffer from not having Trent feeding them the way that they do. So they're that good because they're good players, but without the service from players like Trent, they wouldn't be what we think they are now. You have to have that level of service. And so I'm sure Salah would have loved to have Trent feeding him balls for Egypt. You know what I mean? Because it's just not the same. It's not the same. I think he's more important than maybe, because I think you can interchange a lot of those forward players for Liverpool, but you can't switch out Trent.
It's as if you're suggesting that football's a team sport. Are you? Are you saying football's a team sport?
Yeah. Who would have thunk it?
There we go. I blame Statman Dave for overanalyzing football. I know you're joking when you say that, but it's not the stats. It's how people like. Do you know what the crazy thing is? I see people that hate Bruno Fernandes use his loss of possession stat every game and moan about his technique, but the same people will like defend Pogba to the hill over his walking stats. And I'm like, well, why don't you use that same logic? Like, check everybody else's stats for that same thing. You always get it with the bad decision making players. Oh, bad decision making. Oh, what does that lead to? Loses the ball. Doesn't, we don't score or create as many. Well, show that to me with facts and examples, and then can cross-reference it against others. They never do the work because it's very easy to throw the accusation out there, but never actually back it up with anything. Super chat here says, we had that one there. I'm not going to lie. Trent Alexander-Arnold is bound to be a Liverpool legend. Yes, of course he is. 110% he'll be a Liverpool legend, if not one already.
Yeah.
Terry, can you really say that Arsenal bottle it if reoccurring injuries impede the momentum? I don't know. Bottle is a strong statement. Well, I'm not saying that you can't say someone's bottled it until you see the way you perform, the way you played. I've said this about Chelsea, and I'll say it about Arsenal. And by the way, you haven't seen me moan about United not winning things this year because we bought the wrong players or injuries have kept certain people out. Not once have you seen me drop that excuse. So I don't hypocrisize myself on this. It's how you play. Arsenal's squad team without Kieran Tierney is good enough to beat Brighton. Arsenal's team without Kieran Tierney and Partey is good enough to beat Southampton. You are a better team than them. And this is my point. Chilwell and Reece James being out for Chelsea could be the reason why they don't challenge for elite or fall away slightly, don't beat the better teams. But ending up finishing anywhere between sort of 15 and 20 points behind Liverpool and City, that isn't a good enough excuse. Losing and dropping points to mediocre mid-table teams is not a good enough excuse because even your replacements are better than what that team's got. Like, with all due respect, and the way you have to look at these things, how many players from Brighton's team get into, honestly get into Arsenal's? Basuma maybe. Basuma probably does, How many others get into the team? Not very many. And that's the point I'm making here. It's not to say bottled as an overarching statement. You've got to review it, I think, in the end.
Yeah. And what I would challenge Arsenal fans to do is not just say, well, we got the injuries, so there you go. Like, I think we could be excited about what Arteta's doing, but he's under review until proven otherwise. And so is Edu. And we've been very complimentary of all the things that they've done so far. But ultimately, we won't know until the end of the season whether or not some of the decisions that they've made have been beneficial to our season. Thomas Partey and Kieran Tierney are two players that without them, our system really doesn't work. So is Arteta's system that good if two players missing out of them, you can't win games? I don't know. That's a question that we need to ask ourselves. And if you had a great summer window, but the two players that are meant to come in and replace them can't do the job, or the manager doesn't feel comfortable using them, then we have a recruitment question to ask. So I think that's more what it is. I mean, the whole bottling things, like, newsflash, Arsenal fans, if we don't make top four, we're getting cooked no matter what. It is what it is. So they're going to say we bottled it. They're going to say we got cooked, whatever. But amongst each other, we need to have more open conversations around the nuances between, like, was it that good? Is Arteta's system that good? Is our recruitment that good? We'll only know that at the end of the season.
Yeah, no, I hear you completely. And listen, viewers, really appreciate everyone who's tuned in today. Jess, it's always a pleasure. Please make sure you're smashing the like and the share buttons before you leave the show and subscribing to the Football Terrace. I know a lot of people have complained recently about notifications not coming through. Yeah, I've had the same. I've got my own channel on notifications, and I haven't had one yet that we've gone live, which is intriguing. It's my channel. Maybe they think I should know, but there we go. So make sure you've got them turned on. But we stream pretty much the same times every week. We're going to start getting some schedules made up and put out there for you so you know what time things are happening each week to keep you aware of stuff. Until next time, everybody, look after yourselves. Take care. Goodbye. God bless. And we'll see you.